You're listening this morning to the Frost Septet on the Frost Jazz Hour, and our very special guest, NEA Jazz Master Maria Schneider, is with us. She's here all week doing a residency, culminating in a concert this Saturday night. I wanted to mention that that concert starts at 7:30. We've got a new earlier start time for our weekend concerts, which I think is helpful to everyone in the community. So 7:30, and of course, valet parking at Gusman Hall. Maria, thanks again for being with us. What do you think of the band?
It's fantastic. I was just sitting here thinking, and I mentioned to you somebody in the band looks like somebody we knew
Yes.
back when we were in school in the mid-'80s. But I was just kind of reflecting on how high the level has always been at this school and how it just seems to be expanding. And you guys are just incredible. It makes me feel like, wow, we're going into great times for music. You know, musicians just playing at such a magnificent level.
These guys certainly are. And you know, we're kind of trying to follow your lead a little bit with Artist Share. I was talking to you about this earlier. John DeVersa had this idea that we should start, we record these groups all the time, but his idea was we would start cataloging some of these groups and putting our records out on Artist Share. The Stamps Quintet, another group of ours, has an album out. Last year's version of this band has an album out. And I think that the Fizz will probably be the opening number on this year's version as we put out that album on Artist Share, which is, I think, a label that really came to prominence because of your work.
Well, yeah, I should say that I came up at the right time, and Artist Share, Brian Camilio started it. He had the right answer. This is when file sharing first became prevalent, and his idea was that giving artists control of their own work, which the internet allowed us to have, and then documenting our own work and connecting directly with fans and knowing who our fans are, that was the way to be able to pay for our work and developing those relationships. And it has worked very well for me. There are certain things in the business that make it a struggle. Big data companies that want our music to be free and want people to be able to use it so that they can gather data. But you know, a big antidote against that is Artist Share. So I think it's also what's really been fun for me about it is I've been doing Artist Share since 2003 is when I first started documenting stuff. That's 17 years ago. Now that seems like a long time ago, but you can't believe, I'm just looking at these musicians here, how fast that time flies. And what's really fun now is to go back and listen to the interviews with my guys and look and listen and see those performances and see the photos and just think, oh my God, we were so young. And so it becomes an incredible archive. And it will be that if you guys do this and continue to do this, and someday you'll look back and say, oh my God, look at us, we were so young and we sounded so good.
That's true. For those of you who are not aware, in addition to being an incredible artist, Maria is a huge champion and advocate for artists' rights. Not just somebody who says a couple of things, but who's actively involved. She's testified before congressional committees. She's very active in the industry in championing the rights of all artists. And a person with your pulpit to do that, we greatly appreciate your voice in that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's just something. I'm one of these people that I'm pretty easygoing about things in life when things happen. But when I feel that there's a very insidious, thing pushing against people that are doing music. We all do music. I think primarily when we're young, music is something that heals ourselves, and we want to heal the world with it, and we want to be able to make a living too. But that's never been the primary. No musician becomes a musician because they think they're going to make a lot of money. We do it despite it, and we hope that can possibly happen to us. And so when companies take advantage of that and destroy that and have a whole false narrative around it that convinces a whole world that music should be free, that gets my shackles up like nothing. And when you get my shackles up, it's trouble, It doesn't happen easily, but when it happens, and so I've been fighting like crazy, and there's going to be an op-ed coming out in a pretty major newspaper soon that I wrote about certain issues, and so I push ahead and hope that other musicians also, that everybody wakes up and becomes advocates for their own future.
Well, we're going to count on your leadership to show us the way, but we are very grateful that you have the courage to do that. Let's move on to another composition of our group. I think, is it the waltz? The next piece is Waltz for Wyatt, gorgeous composition by our trumpet player who serves many roles at the Frost School. He's a great writer, composer, coach, jazz trumpet player, and the lead trumpet player in the concert jazz band. Many hats does he wear. But this is the music of Michael Dudley on the Frost Jazz Hour. Terrific. We are having a great time this morning with the Frost Jazz Septet and the great Maria Schneider, all live here in the studio. We have to take a brief pause for the cause, but stay with us. There's a whole lot more great music and a lot of great insight from the marvelous Maria Schneider. So we'll be right back on the Frost Jazz Hour. Back this morning on the Frost Jazz Hour, having a great time with the Frost Jazz Septet. Hot off a wonderful concert last week. They were in concert in Gusman Hall with the great Dave Liebman, the wonderful Charlie Pillow, presenting a large ensemble treatments of the music from a seminal recording by Miles Davis, Bitches Brew, which is now 50 years old. In my mind, still, that's like the new part of jazz. It's 50th anniversary of that great record. And these guys played a wonderful concert, and it was great to interact with Bo Charles and the great Dave Liebman. And this week we step it up a notch with NEA jazz master Maria Schneider, and many of these guys will be in concert with her Saturday night. But Maria, if you don't mind, we have you here and your great knowledge as a composer. Would you mind talking to our budding composers about something?
Absolutely. We're going to bring Michael Dudley over here. And because I had, last semester when I was here, I had a chance to hear something, an excerpt that he wrote for the HMI orchestra when we tried to give as many students a chance to write for that orchestra. And I was really, I have to say, quite blown away by your ability to write for orchestra and to cross boundaries. And one of the things that is very special about the Frost School of Music is this idea that genres of music aren't living in silos, that classical is over here and jazz is over there. And you clearly embody that I feel like both those things are fused in your music. So if you would just talk a little bit about your influences and how you feel about that.
Sure. I first want to say that when I first arrived here in Miami, my sole goal was to get a jazz trumpet degree, and I wanted to get better at playing the trumpet. But then, as I saw the opportunities that were here for students at the Frost School, I kind of started dipping my toes into different pools and schools of thought, and I've always been interested in classical music. In fact, this weekend I saw a wonderful concert by the Cleveland Orchestra who's visiting down here, and they played some Prokofiev. And because of that and my love of jazz music that I grew up listening to, I just I've not really seen a separation between the two. Whenever I talk with my studio teacher, Brian Lynch, about anything, whether it be Prokofiev or Monk, he always is very supportive and is giving books to check out and say, oh, well, if you like this, you should check this out. So I think the faculty, are great resources for the students here, and they really allow us to become the kind of musicians and people that we would like to be.
Well, I'm really excited to see what kinds of things you're going to be creating and what's going to come in the future for you from all of this, because it's very special what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right.
You got it.
I got it?
You got it.
What do you want me to say?
Anything.
Oh, what
What
am I going to talk about? Well,
How about that? Special guest, guest DJ.
Oh.
So the next thing, I think this morning, the mission statement of this band, of course, is composition as well as creating a band sound. So everybody writes, and they're wonderful in the way they collaborate. They'll try different things, and they're open to all kinds of different input. So it's been a great year so far. I think the next composition is by our bassist, Mr. Paul Pandit. This is we're going to play the tune that we recorded with the French name? Okay. I'm not going to.
Let's
I'm
hear
not
you
gonna,
say it.
No,
let's hear
not,
it.
No, that's
let's
not
try.
It's not going to be good for anybody.
Okay.
We'll let Paul talk about that later.
Hey, Paul, that's a beautiful tune. And you know what? Right away I could hear it's like, okay, it is written by a bass player, and I really loved that there was that interlude and you were playing bowed bass, arco. Because I know so few jazz bass players that want to play arco, that will play arco, and that play beautifully like that. Are you also a classical trained bass player or no? Enough. Yeah, well, it was very beautiful. Yeah, very nice.
How about that? A couple of things I wanted to point out. Again, Maria and Donnie McCaslin will be in concert with the HMI Orchestra on campus at Gusman Hall this Saturday, 7:30 p.m. You can go to frostmusiclive.com to get tickets, or there is a box office, but I would hurry because that concert is going to sell out. It's going to be magnificent. Maria will be conducting. Donnie will be playing. Our students will be brilliant. It's going to be a cast of thousands and very wonderful. Also, I'm proud to announce that in this growing, incredible business model, I think, of the Ground Up Festival, our group here, the Frost Septet, has been invited to perform this year at Ground Up, and we will be presenting our new faculty member, Miss Allison Wedding. She's going to come in and start doing some work with this band over the next couple of weeks. We're excited to have her at the Frost School, and this will take this band in a new and different direction, so we're looking forward to that. And our performance will be on Saturday, February the 15th at the Ground Up Festival. But we have Frost students and faculty who are playing all 3 days of that, so in many different musical styles. So definitely put that on the calendar. And this Saturday night, Gusman Hall, 7:30, with everyone and the great Maria Schneider. Mr. Folsom, are you up next? Our wonderful pianist and composer from Seattle, Washington, Leo Folsom. By the way, let me take a quick moment and just introduce everybody. On piano, Leo Folsom. Our saxophonist from the Tampa Bay area, Mr. Kyle Schroeder. Our guitarist, Miami's own, Josh Bermudez. And hello to his father, who was actually my student many years ago. Talk about getting old. On bass, the great Paul Pandit. On trumpet, the wonderful Michael Dudley. On trombone, glad to have him as a first-year master's student. Even though he's from Florida, he did his undergrad up at Michigan State. And I met him actually this summer in the Aspen Jazz Festival that we're doing. But he's back with us as a grad student. Please welcome Alex Larionoff. And we are pleasured and privileged to have in our midst a gentleman who went to the Frost School years ago and has had a splendid, spectacular professional career and is still in the middle of that, but chose to come back to school and get that next advanced degree. And his work, his performing, his recording, and his mentorship of this group have been something that all of us, myself included, have learned from and appreciated. Would you please welcome on drums the great Ludwig Alfonso. It's a privilege to have you with us, Ludwig, and I'm glad you're here at the school, and I hope as many students as possible can work with you, and you know, the depth of your knowledge is tremendous, and thanks for being with us. Leo, this next composition is something brand new from you, and what's it called? Society Island. Society Island, all right, and you're listening to Leo and the band on the Frost Jazz Hour.
guys, amazing. What incredible, beautiful music that you wrote, and just the playing is such a ridiculous level. It's almost scary. Yeah.
That's a Leo Folsom composition. That will be on the next record. Guaranteed as of now. That was tremendous, guys. We have time for one more piece on the Frost Jazz Hour. Then we have to take our guest artist to her next event. But it's been a pleasure. Maria, I've known you for a very long time, and it's been incredibly wonderful to watch your career grow as an artist, but also the leadership you're providing and all these other parts of artistry and what we can show our students from you. I'm honored to be sitting next to you.
Well, thank you, and likewise, it's so good to be here with you.
Maria, of course, is a 5-time Grammy Award winner, and I lost count of how many nominations. But also, let me get this right, because it's important. You were the first person to win a Grammy from a recording that was only internet-based.
Only sold on the internet. And at the time, because ArtistShare was the first crowdfunding concept. As a matter of fact, crowdfunding, the word hadn't been invented, at least not that I knew. We called it fan funding. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was the first and maybe the only, I don't know, at this point, person to win a Grammy Award with a crowd-funded album. So
congratulations.
It broke ground, and it was very gratifying.
Right, and I think everything that you've done has broken ground in many different ways. I encourage everybody to go to Maria's website too, mariaschneider.com, and read about Data Lords or Data Lords. And there's some blogs and some interesting letters you've written, and it gives you tremendous insight into her artistry, but into where we should be as artists and as a community.
And as people. You know, one thing I'll just say is about this album is that I'm doing called Data Lords is that it started with seeing that how musicians were being used by these companies, but now everybody's being used. Are being used. You know, everybody's being made to be addicted to their devices. So this album that I've made is, it's actually 2 albums or 2 CDs, and it'll be LPs too. And the idea is that we're fighting against this thing, trying to keep control of our own selves, our relationships, our relationship to nature, to poetry, to art. And so one side is influenced by the data lords and the big data companies. It's quite aggressive music. The other side is reconnecting to those things that I think matter so much and that we're losing. You know,
you're hitting home to me as a parent. There are times when I have to take the device out of my son's hand because he is addicted to it. But then we walk outside, we do things, he says, oh, this is great. But yeah, they're designed to be addictive, and we all have to step up to make sure that we don't just go in that direction. This is very important.
And hold corporations accountable that are doing that the same way we did with cigarette companies. It's all the same.
Good. Good for you. The great Maria Schneider, everyone. How about a hand for just having her here with us today? Honored. Honored.
Thank you.
And a great residency she's having at the Frost School, and the culmination of that, as I said before, this Saturday night. Please come out to this incredible concert. Just one of the many facets of her life and career in artistry. But 7:30 this Saturday in Gusman Hall with the HMI Orchestra, we'll be presenting the great Donnie McCaslin, and we hope to have, you're in a continuing residency, so you'll be back.
I'll be back each semester.
With different stuff, and it's going to be great. Just, oh, it's so great to have you here. We're going to go to the top of the hour with one more composition. This is by our wonderful saxophonist, the great Kyle Schroeder. This tune has changed names so many times that I'm not even going to ask. But, we're still out and about with it? Okay. I like the funk in the trunk thing, but, well... I don't get a say. How about a hand one more time, too, for the Frost Jazz Septet. Thank you, guys.